people, once they just sew pencil skirt and get it the first time, that is it. They won't go back to it again. They want to go to corset. This corset that is trending, they want to learn how to sew it by fire, by thunder. They just want to, but no, you have to do it repeatedly until you graduate to the next thing. Hi buddies, welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here, a subscriber, a new subscriber, or a new viewer, you're highly welcome to Way by Angli. My name is Joy and I am the convener of this channel, Way by Angli. So glad to do a sit down video and show my face, especially to all our new subscribers here on the channel. Here on this channel, we are all about sewing tutorials, pattern making, and of course how to make the money from your sewing skills. Now, to all my OGs, to all my subscribers, to all my old subscribers that have been on this channel since day one, I just want to say a very big thank you. Within a period of 1 month, this channel has grown so much and I am so appreciative of your love and your support. I do not take it for granted. In today's video, I'm going to be walking you through the steps of being a self-taught fashion designer, at least in 6 months. Yes, 6 months. I'm going to be walking you through everything you need to know for you to achieve your dreams of becoming a self-taught fashion designer. Being a self-taught fashion designer myself, I wish I knew all or most of the things I'll be sharing with you in this video, because of course they would have helped me make the journey easier than it actually was. But just like they say, experience is the best teacher, and of course it's from my own wealth of experience that I'll be sharing with you the things you need to do and the steps you need to take to actually become a self-taught fashion designer. But before I start, a word of admonition: never ever think that becoming a self-taught fashion designer, a pattern maker, a stylist, whatever you want to do in the fashion industry, never ever think that it is impossible to achieve. I'm saying this because I have been there and I can tell you firsthand that becoming what you want to be, especially in the fashion industry, is very achievable. I've been a self-taught fashion designer from day one. It is very possible, especially in the world we live now, where everything is just at your fingertips. Everything is just one click away. So never ever think that it is impossible for you to become a fashion designer, especially in the world of today. No one just wakes up to learn the skills without proper guidance. But if you're watching this video, chances are that you might be limited either by your location, by financial constraints, or even by time. Maybe you're just curious to know how someone can become a self-taught dressmaker, especially within a very short period of time, say 6 months. I'll be addressing all that shortly, so sit back, relax, and do not fail to watch this video up to the very end. All right. Now, before we delve right into the unknown world of learning how to sew on your own, there are a couple of things you need to know. There are a couple of things you need to bear at the back of your mind. First is your mindset. How prepared are you to start learning the sewing skill? I'm actually saying this because sewing is one thing that will test your willpower. Sewing will test your patience and it will test your grit. You need to actually make up your mind to decide if you're going to be in the skill, if you're going to be doing the skill for the long haul. That way you know that you're not going to give up on yourself and on your goals of actually becoming a self-taught fashion designer or a dressmaker. Second thing to put into consideration is your environment. What things have you put in place to make your learning process an easy one, especially if you are going to be self-taught? Now, if your environment is not in tandem with your sewing goals and aspirations, chances are that you might get frustrated along the way and even possibly give up. Now, when I say environment, I mean your workspace, your sewing space. You will need to have a dedicated space in your room where you would do your sewing, your cutting, your drafting, or what have you. Having a dedicated environment can help put you in the mood of sewing and help you remain focused throughout your sewing process. So you do not want to miss that. You need to create a suitable environment or a dedicated environment for your sewing. Sewing space should be free from distractions, if possible human distractions, so that you're focused on when you start sewing. You know that you're just focused on that alone. Now, the third thing you need to consider is your resources. And when you're starting as a dressmaker or as a beginner in sewing, there are a couple of things you need to get Of course, you're not just going to be working empty-handed, so you have to take that into consideration. How much are you willing to spend on your projects, and how much are you willing to invest in learning the skill? When you're starting out as a dressmaker, a pattern maker, or a fashion designer, a list of essential tools that you'll be needing to start out with. The very essential ones, the ones you cannot do without. Okay, there are a list of tools you will need to start out with. Tools like your sewing machine, your pressing iron, your meter rule, your scissors, and accessories like needles, pins, and your marking tools. These are the very important tools that you cannot do without. You have to be willing to, of course, spend some money on that. If you're on a tight budget, these are the list of essential materials and tools you'll be starting out with. So I'll be linking them down in the description box. You can do well to check that out. Just look at it, browse through it, and know what it entails or the requirements that you'll be needing to start at, especially as a self-taught dressmaker or fashion designer. There are also a list of tools that can make your work easier, but they are not 100% essential. They are not 100% compulsory. Or if you have a little bit of finance to splurge, then of course you can do well to get that, because they are going to make your sewing journey or your sewing process a whole lot easier. So I've also gone ahead to list those secondary tools that you'll be needing when starting out as a dressmaker. So to start out on your self-taught journey, or on your journey of becoming a fashion designer, the first thing you need to do is to decide on what niche you want to focus on. We keep on saying niche. Whenever you watch so many videos, they always talk about niche. There's a reason for that, because especially in the fashion industry is very broad. So when you want to start out in dressmaking, you want to decide what area of fashion do I want to focus on. Do you want to focus on females wear? Do you want to be doing children's wear and teens wear? Or do you want to focus on males wear? Now, when you come into these areas of fashion, do you want to also focus on accessories? Yes, there are fashion designers that do basically accessories. They don't sew clothes, they sew things like hats, bags, shoes. All these are areas of fashion design that you can focus on. So you want to decide on your niche. What area of fashion designing are you willing to go into? So you want to take note of that. And then when you come into the niche, you also want to decide, say for instance, you want to go into females wear, right? So you want to say, you ask yourself questions like, what area of females wear do you want to go into? Do you want to start doing lingeries? Do you want to do lounge wears? Do you want to do street wears? Do you want to go into active wears? And when you've decided on that, you also ask yourself, do you want to be doing this in a ready-to-wear form, or do you want to go into it as bespoke, or do you want to go into it for commercial purposes like bulk production, mass production? So these are the things you need to decide, because from experience I've found out that when you delve into something like sewing and then you're throwing your eggs in all the baskets, it's actually going to lead you nowhere. So you have to decide what area of fashion design or what area of sewing do you want to focus on. Say for instance, myself, like if you been on this channel for a while and you've listened to me speak on my journey, you will find out that I started sewing in 2013, and while I started out, I didn't have like any plan or action. I was just doing anything and everything. In fact, there was even a time I delved into males wear, you can imagine. So I was doing basically everything: children's wear, females wear, bespoke, ready to wear. I was doing everything, and believe you me, it was very, very overwhelming. I was focusing my energy on everything, dissipating my energy without actually focusing on my strengths. It was not until 2022, ending of 2022, did I decide to actually calm down and focus on what I really, really enjoy doing, which is teaching, and of course teaching dressmaking, fashion designing, and pattern making. That's why you always see me here on YouTube. So for me, basically, YouTube is a platform where I teach, a platform where I share my gifts with all of you, my fellow dressmakers and my sewing buddies. So you can see I've been able to niche down to teaching fashion designing, to teaching sewing and dressmaking online, right? So you want to decide if you want to do this online or offline. You want to decide what platform you want to, just try and niche down so that you're known for a particular thing. It's actually not good when they come to a particular industry and maybe somebody is looking for someone to sew wedding dress, and you are not niched down. Like, for instance, I can think from my head, if I want to think of a Nigerian fashion designer or just a fashion designer that can make a wedding dress, there are actually a couple of people that comes to my mind, right? Because they've, you know, carved out this area as their niche. When I'm thinking of something like children's wear, there are actually some designers that come to my mind when I'm thinking on children's wear. When you talk of ready to wear, street wears, ready to wear, there are actually a couple of people that comes to your mind, right? When you talk of couture dresses, you know, all these heavy duty gengem corset dresses, there are actually a couple of people that come to your mind. Even in that niche, there are people that are just focused on sewing wedding dresses and sewing anything that has to do with bridal, wedding, veils, you know, wedding robes. There are people like that. I even know of a fashion designer that is just focused on sewing wedding robes. So you want to be known for something, right? Now, when you've carved out your niche, I'm not saying when you're starting out as a fashion designer, when you're starting out as a dressmaker, you should just be sewing that your niche. No. In tailoring, you have to learn the basics. Now, the basic covers for all this field. Take, for instance, somebody that has a basic knowledge of, you know, the sewing machine can actually make a hat or a bucket hat. The person can actually sew a bag, but the person might not do it so well as someone who is actually in that niche, right? So you want to have a basic knowledge of tailoring, or you want to have a basic knowledge of sewing. You want to have basic knowledge of fabric composition, the fabric texture, the parts of the machine, what we use for different types of style. For example, the basic knowledge of sewing or the basic knowledge of fashion designing would enable you to know a particular fabric texture, a particular fabric that will be good for a particular style. Take, for instance, you cannot use a chiffon fabric to make a structured dress, all right? And you cannot use jean, or you cannot use a denim fabric to make a draped dress or a dress that needs fluidity. So these are the basic things you need to know in fashion designing. These are the basic things you need to know in tailoring that will make your sewing journey seamless. Okay, so first thing first, you know your niche, and then when you've known your niche, you have to cool down and learn the basics. I see a whole lot of beginners. I see a whole lot of people who want to become tailors or fashion dressmakers. I see they always make this mistake. Like, you're a beginner and you want to start with sewing a corset dress, and then when you try and fail, you say you've given up on sewing, or maybe it's too difficult. No, as a beginner, you have to start from the A, B, C before you go to X, Y, Z. You have to start with sewing things like scarves, handkerchiefs. Then you can now graduate to making things like bucket hats, circle skirts, pencil skirts. Of course, you have to start from scratch. You can't be a beginner and then you want to start with projects like corsetry. Man, even for we advanced fashion designers or for we advanced dressmakers, corset is a lot of work, not to talk of a beginner that has not really mastered, you know, the sewing machine or how to maneuver the sewing machine. So you really want to start from the basic things. Okay, you want to start with learning things like fabric composition, how a fabric behaves. You want to start with sewing of straight lines, sewing of curved lines. When I started my sewing journey, like I said, I'm a self-taught dressmaker. When I started my sewing journey, I sewed straight lines on paper. Like, I cannot count how many of them. You might be wondering, oh, this is a waste of time. No, it's not a waste of time. Like, when you see neatly made dresses, neatly made clothes, and you look at them critically, you see how neat the lines are, how, you know, straight the lines are. Now, if a beginner sews that cloth, it won't be as straight as that. So you really need to learn how to master the sewing machine. You know, you bring out a sheet of paper or papers, you draw straight lines on them, and then you start sewing on those straight lines. When you've mastered the straight lines, start doing curved lines. All right, you can even do circle lines on the paper. These are the steps you need to take. That way, when you are sewing, you've mastered. You know that you are not struggling with the fabric and struggling with the sewing machine at the same time. Okay, so you want to master how to use the sewing machine very well, so that you know that you've cleared that one, master a particular thing, know it very well before you go on to the next one. Imagine you're sewing chiffon fabric and you don't know how to use a sewing machine. It's going to be very difficult for you to control the chiffon fabric, because chiffon fabric can be, you know, moving anyhow. Or maybe you're sewing organza. Organza is another difficult fabric to make. Or even silk. Oh, silk. Silk is one difficult fabric to work with, I tell you. So you need to master the sewing machine, the use of the sewing machine first, before you now start, you know, going deeper into difficult styles. So they are actually steps. If you want me to give you a list of curriculum that you can follow, so that especially for self-taught dressmaker, because if you're going to a fashion school, chances are that they are going to definitely be taking these steps. Nobody wants to go through the stress of training a beginner in something that an advanced learner is learning. Say for instance, if you're learning how to sew a corset, you should have already known how to draft your basic bodice block. You should have learned that already. You should have learned that manipulation. All right, you should have learned what cup size is going to go for a particular corset, or what cup size is going to go for a particular size of person you're sewing for. All those basic things are things you should have cleared a long time ago before actually say, okay, now I want to sew a corset dress. So you need to learn the very basics before you start progressing. Okay, so have this at the back of your mind. If you want me to list down that curriculum, I want to know if you, in fact, if I get up to 20 people that says I want the curriculum in the comment section, then I'm going to send you my curriculum. I'm going to send you to a link where you're going to download the curriculum, so that when you're going through your sewing journey, you can follow the processes. You know, you don't jump the processes. Now, if I don't give you the curriculum, there are a whole lot of free resources online. Like I said, in the world we live today, all you just need to do is search. If you search for the knowledge, you will find it. I cannot tell you how much I searched for. There is nothing you are looking for that you won't find online. All you just have to do is search. If you don't find it in free resources, you can find it in paid resources. There's always an answer to your problem online. So all you have to do is know how to put in the right keywords, and then you search. So even if you don't want me to give you a curriculum, you can always go online, maybe on Google, on Yahoo or Bing. You just go online and search for, you know, dressmaking curriculums. There are a whole lot of universities that have theirs pasted online for free, so you can just download those curriculum and use it, you know, sieve out the ones you want and the ones you don't want, because most of all those things can be theoretical. I know that most of them are not maybe practical things. They are quite theoretical, so you have to look at the things you can take out and know which one you follow. Now, another thing you have to take into consideration when you're starting out as a self-taught fashion designer is how much time are you willing to dedicate to learning the dressmaking skill or the sewing skill. How much time are you willing to dedicate? Now, I know that some of you, when I said how to become a self-taught fashion designer in 6 months, you rush and clicked. You rush and clicked because maybe magic, you thought I was going to perform magic. No, if you don't give it time, if you don't dedicate time to the sewing skill, you're not going to learn it. You're not going to master. Just as it is with any other thing you want to do in this life, you have to dedicate good time to read. Now, for somebody like me, I know that I am a fast grabber. I learn very fast. Once I just put my head down and say, I'm going to learn this thing, believe you me, I'm going to learn it. I will go to every nook and cranny. I will follow professionals in that field on social media. In fact, I will surround myself with that skill just because I want to master that particular skill. If you come to my phone, you will see everything, pattern drafting, Google to go, everything is inside that phone, just so that I can surround myself with it. Chances there's hardly is there any new thing that comes out in the design world that I'm not aware of. Why? Because I'm always updating myself and upgrading my skills. So you want to dedicate that time. Know how much time you're willing to dedicate to the skill of sewing, to the skill of dressmaking, to fashion designing, to pattern making, whatever area you want to focus on. Know how much time you're willing to dedicate. Okay, you cannot say, oh, I want to learn fashion design, or I want to learn how to sew in 6 months, and then in a day you don't even do one thing about sewing, or maybe a week goes by and you have not climbed on your sewing machine to sew. Even if it's handkerchief, it will not work. It's not going to work. So you have to make up your mind. You know, make sure that your schedule is free from other things that are going to be taking your time. So you have to create time. Now, if you're a fast learner, you can dedicate like little time. But if you're a slow learner, you know you need lots of time. Like, you need to dedicate so much time for you to be able to meet up, especially with maybe your curriculum, the curriculum you've set for yourself. So you just have to create time for the skill you want to learn, especially sewing skill. You have to create time, because like I said in the beginning of this video, sewing is one thing that will test your patience. It will test your patience. Imagine that you're sewing a dress. I think this one just came to my head. You're sewing a dress and you think you're sewing the armhole. Meanwhile, what you're sewing is the neckline. Or maybe I know a couple of us have made this mistake at least once in our journey. You want to put sleeve and you have a round neck, and then you have your armhole, and then you're just sewing. Everything is just going smoothly, only for you to find out that you're fixing the sleeve in your neckline. You see? So it's something that really would test your patience. You need to calm down, decide that you're going to give this time, and like I said, don't jump the gun. Don't jump, just take it one step after the other. You cannot be doing difficult tasks when you're just starting. You're going to get frustrated. So you need to dedicate time. You need to learn the basics, the ABCs. You need to make sure that you have all the necessary resources available, like your scissors, your tape, your chalk, everything, pins. Especially pins. You need pins as a beginner, because I think most of us, we are not relaxed enough, or we are not calm enough to actually use pins and pins before stitching. Pins will help you. Even me, as an advanced dressmaker, I use pins a lot. Especially when I'm sewing difficult curves or difficult edges. I love using pins. So you need to learn, be patient enough to use pin. And I also see a whole lot of people are not patient enough to press their work when they are sewing. Pressing is one good thing. In fact, start the habit from day one, because once you learn the habit of ironing while you sew, you cannot sew without ironing. You will not want to sew without it, because it makes your work neat. In fact, it even makes you hide some unnecessary mistakes that you might want to overlook. So always learn how to use your pressing iron. Don't just sew without ironing your clothes. These are the things that makes your work stand out from the next person. Okay, so being a self-taught fashion designer is very possible, but are you willing to follow the steps? Are you willing to calm down? Are you willing to dedicate time? Are you willing to dedicate your resources? Now, when I say resources, I'm not saying you should go and break the bank or you go and spend overly. The necessary things you need to spend. Are you willing to, dedicate money for those necessary things? Because I know that most of us that want to become dressmakers, we are limited by resources, finances. Fashion school these days are very expensive. All right, although I know that something being expensive is relative, but we know that an average African or an average Nigerian cannot even afford a fashion school. So the only thing you have at your liberty is learning for yourself, learning online. And all these things I'm listing out are the things that are actually going to help you to achieve this goal. They are the things that are going to help you to achieve it. So if you want to learn online like I did, learning on YouTube, learning on different platforms. In fact, I even learned from pictures, just by looking at pictures. I learned from blogs also. You need to read blogs. So those are the things you need to bear at the back of your mind. Now, another thing I want to bring into play is, when I say resources, I'm not just limiting it to fashion tools or fashion equipment or sewing tools and equipment. No, I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about even books. Most of us set out to become fashion designers and then we don't want to read. We set out to become dressmakers and then we don't want to read. What book are you willing to read? You need to download books. You need to buy books that are going to help you. Okay? Now, one good thing about books in dressmaking or in sewing is that when you read books, they tell you why you do what. Most of us, all we just know is practicals. Of course, I'm not saying practicals are bad. No, practicals are not bad. It's good to practicalize your skills. But somebody like me, I know that my niche in dressmaking is actually in the tutoring aspect of dressmaking. In fact, I just realized it. I actually enjoy tutoring, but because I was focusing my energy on bespoke and ready to wear and the likes, I wasn't giving the part that feels that passion, I wasn't giving it so much attention, because of course you have to meet up with people's dresses, you have to meet up with others and things like that. So somebody like me that is in the dressmaking, in the tutoring niche of dressmaking, or in the tutoring niche of sewing, you need to know those things. You need to know why, because you will have students that will ask you, why are we doing this? Why are we taking 2 inches? Why are we taking 1 inch? You need to explain all those things. Okay, so even if you're not in the tutoring niche, you also need to have basic understanding of why we do what in fashion designing. Why do we use chiffon for fluid clothes or for drapery clothes? Why do we use denim for structured clothes? All right, you want to know why we do these things. You need to understand why things are done and why a particular thing might not work for, or why a particular style might not work with a particular fabric. I always use that illustration. So this is what reading textbooks will help you to do. Now, one particular textbook I love so much for pattern making is the Helen Armstrong pattern making for designers. The Helen Armstrong pattern making for designers. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it in one of the platforms, or if there, you can check online if there's any like free resource, maybe like a summarized version of it. You can always download it and use it for you know your personal use. Then another one I love is Natalie Bray. If you're an OG on this channel, you know that Natalie Bray pattern or Natalie Bray method of pattern design is what I actually use, or what I love using. It's not like I don't use Helen Armstrong, but if you notice I use Natalie Bray for the upper part, and then I use my own pattern for the lower part. If you've noticed the way we do it on this channel. Now, Helen Armstrong is also good, but from experience, I've tried Natalie Bray, I've tried Helen Armstrong, I've tried I think there's one they call Aldrich. There was time I tried 3 of them, and then when I wore it on my body, the Natalie Bray's method of drafting actually gave me a better fit. That's why I stuck to that. Now, it doesn't mean that the rest are wrong, no. That's why as a dressmaker or a tailor or a fashion designer, you need to know the basics. You need to know all these things, so that when you take a particular method and work with it, you know if it's actually giving you what you want. Now, the next thing, just like I said, the next thing you need to take into consideration is your learning style. How do you want to learn this skill? How do you want to learn the skill of sewing? Personally, I learned on YouTube. I downloaded so many videos on YouTube. I watched them over and over again. In fact, I'll be watching and I'll be sewing at the same time. So shout out to all the tutors here on YouTube that has made people like me for our dreams to actually be actualized. And also shout out to myself for training the future fashion designers. All right, so YouTube has really been a great resource for me. I learned on YouTube, I learned from blogs, I read so many blogs. Pinterest was a wonderful resource. I went on Pinterest, I chewed on every information I saw on Pinterest. I tried so many things. So you have to be willing to experiment as a dressmaker. For instance, when I started learning how to sew, I sewed up to 20 circle skirts. I sewed so many circle skirts. I sewed so many pencil skirts, because I kept, so most people, once they just sew pencil skirt and get it the first time, that is it. They won't go back to it again. They want to go to corset. This corset that is trending, they want to learn how to sew it by fire, by thunder. They just want to, but no, you have to do it repeatedly until you graduate to the next thing. So you just have to calm down, know your sewing style, or your learning style, sorry. You want to learn, do you learn better with video format, or do you learn better with just reading, looking at the pictures and trying it out? Because when you read blogs, these are most of the things they do. They show you step by step, and you just have to read them, just like you read textbooks. You just have to read them and, you know, take them down. So you want to decide what's your learning style like. What are you most comfortable with to learn? Okay, me, I combined everything. I did textbooks, I did YouTube, I did blogs, I followed so many fashion designers, especially the fashion tutors. I followed them on Instagram, I followed them on Pinterest, any platform where I see them, I follow them. So it's basically you submerging or soaking yourself with the knowledge, you know, surrounding yourself with all those knowledge you want to attract. Finally, 2 things that you need to make your bosom thread are patience and grace. Like I mentioned earlier, patience is something that sewing would test your patience. All right, sewing is going to really test your patience. So one thing I always do is I always prepare my mind. Prepare your mind for the tasks ahead. Whenever you want to start a sewing project or start any sewing thing, whatever that has to be sewing, you have to prepare your mind that come what may, you're going to finish the project, that nothing is going to stop you, or that nothing is going to make you get angry and stop. Okay, because I keep on mentioning this because this is one of the problem my years of teaching, I've come to realize that I've had so many students that are not patient enough. They just want to come today and learn everything. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to give yourself time. You have to be patient enough to want to learn this skill. If you actually cool down to learn the sewing skill, just give yourself 6 months, from 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and you look back and look at some of the things you've been sewing, you'll be laughing because you've actually grown. So patience is what you need, and secondly, you need grace. And when I say grace, not just grace from God, you also need to be graceful to yourself and forgiving to yourself. So many people beat themselves up, especially when they are not able to meet up with a particular job or a particular project. No, you need to give yourself that grace. Aside from the patience, you need that grace. You need to be graceful to yourself. As far as you know you've done everything you're supposed to do, maybe it's just your experience level that is making you delay in a particular job, then why won't you give yourself grace? As far as you keep at it consistently, you will get better. So you need patience and you need grace. If for instance you see somebody that just started sewing today, or maybe somebody that has just been sewing for 2 weeks, and then you're comparing your journey with somebody that has been sewing for 20 years, how possible is that? Like, are you being kind to yourself? You're not being kind to yourself. You're not being graceful to yourself. All right, so you need that grace. You need to tell yourself, oh, I'm just starting out, I must not be as good as this. Stop comparing your own journey to another person's journey, because it will only lead in frustration. You only get frustrated when you compare yourself. Take for instance, when you see somebody that has been sewing for a very long period of time, the person sewed a corset dress in a day, and it's taking you 2 weeks or 1 week or 1 month safe to finish a particular dress that somebody finished in a day, and then you think you're not doing well. No, you're actually doing well. It's just that your experience level is quite different from that person's own, because aside from sewing speedily, the person has mastered the art of sewing, and the person has known the things to do to cut corners and things like that. So experience will teach you a whole lot. Okay, so you need to give yourself that time. You need to be graceful with yourself. You need to be patient with yourself, and you need to be kind with yourself. Don't beat yourself up when you're not meeting up with your desired deadlines or timelines. Having said all this, I hope this video has been really helpful to, at least give you a little bit of idea on what becoming a self-taught dressmaker or sewist entails. I hope this video has been able to prepare your mind for the tasks ahead if you're about to become a dressmaker or a seamstress or a fashion designer. I hope this video has been able to, break down the nitty-gritties of everything you need to do to make your journey a seamless and a sweet one, or a seamless and an enjoyable one. Thank you so much for sticking with me up to this very end. Please, if you have not subscribed to the channel already, please do not forget to do so. I just felt we should have a break from the constant sewing, because this channel is all about sewing, pattern making, and making money with your sewing business online. But I just decided to throw it out there so that we'll calm down and catch our breath instead of bombarding you with so many sewing lessons. So I hope this video has been able to fulfill the purpose for which it was created. Thank you so much for sticking with me to this very end. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so that you get notified whenever I post new videos. Thank you so much, my lovely sewing buddies. Until next time, I remain my humble self, Joy Onovo. Thank you so much. Bye.